city keeps its secrets, but nothing hides forever. This is the evidence trail. I've seen enough crime scenes to know one thing: people lie, but evidence can lead to the truth. And my partner, Chris G., knows how to read it. Each episode, we open the file, trace the facts, and let the science speak. So watch your step. Once you're on the evidence trail, the truth is coming for you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Evidence Trail podcast. Today, I've got a really exciting guest with me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time since she agreed to it. Joining me today is Asha Carmody, a forensic scientist, criminologist, and passionate victim advocate. She's the host of Exhuming The Truth, a podcast that's about more than just true crime. It's dedicated to giving victims a voice, raising awareness of missing persons and cold cases, and educating the public on the important role they can play in helping investigations. Asha, it's great to have you with me. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this one because you're my first actual podcaster that I'm getting on the podcast. So
That's so cool.
yeah, I've got a few people lined up, a few podcasts lined up, but you're the first. So yeah, you're breaking that.
I'll gladly take the title.
So before we dive into Exhuming the Truth, I'd love to learn more about your journey. So what first sparked your interest in forensic science and criminology?
I think I've always had an interest, always like that teenager that was watching the weird shows, the true
Yeah.
crime and things like that. It wasn't until I was an adult really that I thought, okay, I'm going to study this because I was working in a different field and my circumstances just hadn't aligned with that at all until I kind of got the opportunity after being injured at work. Actually, I thought, okay, well, I've got this time. I'm sitting here. I think I'm going to apply to go to uni. If I get in, I get in. If I don't, I don't. And from there, I have just I've stopped studying now, but I couldn't stop studying at the time. I ended up doing 3 degrees in forensics and criminology and loved it so much. And then from there, just took like every opportunity I could.
Oh, wow. So this injury at work, was that what kind of made you sort of reevaluate what you wanted to do in a way?
Yeah, it kind of did. Like I was working as a horse trainer, so it's completely different. I'd always loved both, but kind of thought like, it's so much easier, obviously, to get a job as a horse trainer than it is in forensics. So I just thought it was a bit above my grade at that time. But I think it kind of came at the perfect time because I was a bit older and a lot more dedicated, I would say.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I interviewed someone a few weeks ago and they were of the same opinion. Like to be a forensic scientist, you need to almost be like an Einstein person. And I think people forget that forensic scientists are just normal people. We're just day-to-day people.
Absolutely.
And, I think that it's probably the media and TV shows that portray the scientists out to be absolute geniuses that do everything. And I think the best thing a forensic scientist can know is who to call on when they don't know something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about collaboration and persistence, I would say. Like there's going to be harder bits, but as long as you keep trying, that's the key.
Yeah. And so you've done 3 degrees. What are those 3 degrees in? You put me to shame. But yeah.
I started off in biomedical science and I majored in human anatomy and physiology, which I loved. And then I moved into a Bachelor of Forensic Biology and Toxicology. And then I went into criminology and crime science.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Lots of minefields there that you can really get stuck into.
It's actually, it's great because they're actually very different. Like criminology and forensics, they kind of sound like they align, but they're so different in an approach, in like an investigation kind of basis. So it has been super beneficial, I think.
Yeah. And with toxicology as well, I mean, I'm used to, as a kind of former CSI, doing recovering toxicology samples from deceased and things like that on behalf of the pathologist, sending them off for drugs, alcohol. But I've been listening to a podcast called The Tox Lab. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's 2 people who talk about, all things toxicology. And it just blew my mind just how deep it goes into, like poisons and nerves agents and all different things that, I hadn't even, thought about
Crazy.
really.
There's so many branches to that tree, I can't even explain to you. Like, when we did, like, obviously, you had the choice of kind of what you were majoring in. Tox was my major. I initially was super interested in it from, like, a spiking agent in terms of, like, a neurological
Hmm.
weapon, and then I ended up actually researching further into drug redistribution once a person has died and how that drug remains in the body or how it exits the body. So there's just so many layers to toxicology, which is great. We need more people doing it, I think, but it's very intricate.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely is. How did you get your start in forensic science and what did those early experiences teach you?
Um, I had to really push. I mean, as you would probably know, as somebody in the industry, it's not easy, like, to get a job. People want someone with experience, but who's going to give you experience when you've only got the education? So that kind of gap there was a nightmare for a little while. I was like, give me this internship to, like, everybody. And I think I eventually just got so annoying that people were like, "Okay, we'll give you the internship," because I was like, "I need work experience. Like, I know how to do these things, but I need to apply them." And after really harassing the department at my uni, being like, "Hello, put me on this," they did, and that was great because that was kind of a step in the door. So that was a cold case program that we had, and we were just kind of working collaboratively as a group on cold cases, which slightly got me in the door. Didn't feel real enough to me because it was still at my own uni, if that makes sense. I just wanted something independent. And from there, I did an internship in India, but I did it remotely, which was great. That was a really great experience, which saw me getting another, not an internship, like a student role internationally again in Germany. And then that led to team leading. And then it just kept going from there. So once I started getting the experience, it wouldn't stop coming. And I couldn't say no. And I did all of the experiences offered to me. And that's kind of how I started getting the actual real life experience.
Yeah. I think, well, there's a lot to unpack there. First off, I'd say I completely agree with you in that you've just got to be so annoying that eventually someone's like, the only way this person's going to clear off is if I just hire them.
Yeah.
And I was going for jobs in the police for about a year and I would just apply for everything. And I eventually got the role as someone that works in the post room, just opening letters. I was on a salary that would be illegal now if they paid you that.
Wow.
And the way that I describe my career, like getting into forensic science, is a bit like Monsters University. If you've seen that film, that Disney Pixar film
Yeah.
with Mike and Sully, and they can't become scarers, they don't quite make it in university. So how do they get their role? They apply in the post room and then they become a janitor and then they be the person that is assisting with like the scream jars and things like that until they eventually make it. And I kind of say that, that's a bit like my life. People also make other kind of comparisons with me in that Monsters University film, but that's the way to do it, is like you say, to just gain experience.
Yeah, unfortunately, you've just gotta be really annoying
Yeah,
and persistent, but yeah.
yeah. Another thing that you mentioned is about how you did cold cases coming in. Did you always want to kind of get involved in cold cases?
I Yes, ultimately, yes. I didn't necessarily want to just be working on cold cases only because I think I didn't see the value in forensics at that point in time in cold cases, and I didn't understand the value in how we progress each year with science and things like that back then. But in saying that, having started in cold cases and seeing even the progression over a year of the different methods we could use and all this for existing evidence, that kind of grew my curiosity in cold cases, and it made me feel like, okay, there actually is hope. Because at the start, I kind of felt like, oh my God, like, what am I doing that everyone else can't be doing in cold cases? But as I saw, okay, there is potential for us to actually retest things and improve things and work on things, then that kind of really got me down the cold case rabbit hole. And I
Yeah.
stuck with that for a while because I was like, okay, like I'm really determined to like create something or a testing method or be involved in that where we can use old evidence and apply modern forensics. So I found that really cool. But that did, to be honest, take me at least 6 to 8 months to be like, okay, I get it. Like we can actually do something if we persist.
Yeah. And I think it's really valuable work. And a lot of people get into forensic science because of victims of crime and being, the person that can help progress cases and hopefully, bring the truth and people to justice. And I think, like all bereaved families go through just extraordinary pain. But I think to do that on a daily basis for sometimes 10, 20 years and things like that is just unimaginable. So I think it's really incredible work that people do on cold cases to, like you say, apply modern techniques to cases that wouldn't have had those techniques back then and ensure those victims aren't being forgotten about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely need, I don't know what it's like there in the UK with cold cases, but we certainly don't have an independent cold case unit here. And I think that's something that is super important.
Yeah. I think some of the detectives that I've been working with, there'll be, like cold case reviews that happen. And it can be, like if any evidence comes to light, but then they will review the cases periodically just to see if there are any leads on whether or not they can start opening the case or, if more work can be done. I mean, I've got an interesting story that we can probably cover on your podcast, Asha.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, about someone that came to me that was handed a cold case and needed help with it, and yeah, we managed to solve that together. For that scoop, you're going to have to tune in to Exhuming the Truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great plug. Thank you.
Normally, I wait until the end to plug your podcast, but here we go. We're at 12 minutes in.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so you wear many hats as a forensic scientist, victim advocate, podcaster, and founder of a charitable organization. So tell us about Exhuming the Truth and your charity and how you're making a difference to families affected by missing persons and violent crime.
Sure. So when I was doing the International Cold Case Analysis Project, so that was remotely in Germany and we were working all across Europe. And I did that for a number of years, I think 4 years all up. And I loved it so much and saw the value in that unit itself. And like I said, we don't have anything here in Australia that's like, okay, we do just cold cases. It's kind of just like general policing. And if a case should come up, or like you said, if evidence should come up, then they'll look into it. But I just couldn't fathom having a loved one go missing or be killed and it not being solved. And in criminology, learning a lot in the neuroscience side of things about ambiguous loss and losing somebody but not knowing what happened to them or where they've gone. And I really wanted to do something like this in Australia. And I said to my husband one morning, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. I sound like a crazy person, but I'm going to open this in Australia and see how it goes for a couple of months and, if I can get it going. And he was like, you're insane. And also, is there enough, missing persons and cold cases for you to even do this full time? And I said, just shush and get back to me in 6 months. So I started and I have been full time, I think, since week 2 because we have been so busy. So basically, I cover missing persons cases, cold cases, systemic injustices. So any cases that have been through a sort of a court system or a coronial system and their victim survivors or the victim families believe that it has been unfairly seen. So you wouldn't believe the amount of cases that we have and that just keep coming every day. So with that, we got so busy within that first few months that I thought the only way to continue this sustainably is to create a charity that is advocating for these people. Because at the end of the day, yes, I'm working on it and applying forensics and crim to it at Exhuming the Truth. But the charity, at the end of the day, these families just want someone to speak for them. They want someone to help them through that time, go with them to inquests and court processes and things like that. So we started the charity for that purpose, to advocate for the victims and the families and to do in-person searches for missing persons. So applying the forensic, I have a geographical heat map that I designed, which kind of helps us to locate people. And so now we fly all across the country to help look for missing persons. That's under the charity. So it's a very big umbrella, but there's a lot of victims of crime, put it that way, and families left behind who ultimately they just want to lay their loved ones to rest and have answers. And it doesn't seem like a lot to ask, but for some reason it is. And it's for so many families.
That's, I think, what I loved about your podcast whenever I listen to it is that just knowing when the mic goes off, the work just doesn't stop for you. It's so much more than just, covering a true crime story that's going to engage people for however long, your podcast lasts, and then they can just move on to the next thing. There's always, like more going on in the background. But I mean, I had no idea that you offer that support for, court processes and things, and you fly across the country as well. I just think it's absolutely incredible what you do.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and a lot of the things that we kind of offer were demand based. It was really like we'll offer kind of the basics and see what people need. And the very large majority of people are like, we want someone to come with us as a support person to an inquest and let us know our rights when we're there. Like so many things like that. And also being able to connect those families with each other has been a part of the charity, which is also really great. And that's probably my favorite part because it's a very unique thing for them to go through. But having that support group in the charity is great. Like they've got somebody that can at least relate to what the processes are.
Yeah, because I think like empathy is all well and good, but actually to walk in the shoes of someone that is going through that as well, I can only imagine that these people must think people just aren't getting me. Whereas if they are in that support group where people have gone through exactly that, they must feel, a bit more comforted. But
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So you've spoken to a wide range of guests and explored some incredibly powerful stories. Is there one episode or interview that has stayed with you and why?
Oh my goodness. I have to be completely honest. I think about all my cases every day, just to preface that. I'm always like, they're just constantly in my mind. One family that is always at the forefront of my mind is a missing person, a 27-year-old man. His name's Jack McLennan. And the reason why this one sticks with me so much is because when I started in Australia, my work here independently, no one knew me, right? Like they were like, who is this person? She's starting this. Like, what does she even do? Because I'd been working internationally, like no one knew me. And this family was the first family to be like, okay, I trust you 100%. Essentially, with my son's life, here's all we have. Please help us. And they were the first family to do that. And for them, I think that's like very brave and telling of what type of family they are. And that was the first case that we picked up when we started. We're still on it now. We're literally flying to their state next month to do an in-person search. And that case, it's sad as a missing persons case, but it's sad systemically as well because they have been grossly let down by the police force in this case. And it kind of her son's case really opened the door, I think, for so many other missing persons cases to come forward and ask for help because a lot of people the police will look for, their 7 to 14 days and then they will say, hey, if we don't have any other evidence, we're not going to continue looking every day. Then families are sitting there going, okay, well, we'll just wait. And then years down the track, you've got all these families who are still waiting, who didn't know that they could come to a service like me and be like, hey, I'm actually waiting for help too. So Kelly, her name is Kelly Moody, and her son, Jack McLennan, they really, while we have not been able to get answers for her yet, all my fingers are crossed. I hope we do, but she also knows, like I keep telling her, that she really did open the door for all these other families to get support. And that's huge. Like that is a huge achievement. And it's huge of her to trust us with her case when we were kind of unknown to her and everyone else. So that case every day is a priority for me for that very reason. But we've had so many cases that It's all the same thing, people just really desperately needing help and us kind of under-resourced.
Yeah. And I guess it's partly that case, which is where Exhuming the Truth is now, I guess, in a way, isn't it? It's kind of, yeah, giving you that purpose, really. And I guess so many more people have come forward as a result of that.
Absolutely.
Going back to what I said about being a good forensic investigator, and it's not about what you know, sometimes it's about who you know. I think with the police as well, when they do their search for, say, 7 days, 14 days, eventually that comes to an end. But I think what would be more impactful for families is if, say, the police force said, it say comes to an end, but here's a charity like yourself that can continue this on for you. We can't offer you the resources that I know you kind of would want and deserve. However, these are people that can do it for you. I think that would be more impactful for the families and probably make them feel more supported than, if it is kind of like after 14 days, that's it. That's all we can give your loved one.
That's absolutely correct, because a lot of the time, families then they get this huge divide with police because they think that they're not being helped enough, which you can obviously understand their point of view. At the end of the day, these officers, well, 99% of the time, they do want to get you answers and bring you closure, but they can't realistically be doing that every single day when we've got new things occurring every single day that need them. We have domestic call outs, we have like traffic violations, just so many things. It's not realistic for them. And that's why we're so important and designed to, in a way, complement the police in that way, like you said, for them to be able to say, we have used all of our resources. These people are going to take care of you. If anything else comes up, we will be here to cover that. And I think that it couldn't work in a better system than that, to have that ongoing support for the families.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've got a lot of police listeners, so hopefully, they'll listen and think about other organisations that are out there. I take it is just exclusive to where you live, Australia.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because when
Oh,
when I registered it, I said to my husband, I'm like, should I do? He was saying, oh, WA, keep it WA, like Western Australia, and I was like, you're mad. We're doing the whole country, and he's like, you're mad, and then as I was doing that, I was like, I'm gonna tick the box over here that says I can also operate internationally, just in case, and I did that. So we are registered internationally. Should anybody want our help, we're more than happy to give it. And I do have family members in the UK. So I did tell them, I'm like, do you want to take the charity flyers and that? And they're like, not yet, maybe we'll wait. But no, we are definitely open to operating overseas.
yeah, definitely. Even if you don't fly over here, but just like you say, put people in touch with a support network and grow that elsewhere, I think that would be absolutely incredible.
Absolutely, and we're actually in the process at the moment of, hopefully, again, fingers crossed, partnering with a university there in the UK to bring a similar kind of education cold case program to them, so they can kind of pick up more cases and things like that. So that would be aligned with the charity as well.
Fantastic. Are you allowed to say which university it is?
Not yet, but I might later if you have me back.
There's a reason just there.
Yeah.
Your work is clearly driven by a deep sense of purpose. Where does your passion for advocating for missing people and victims of crime come for? So was there sort of like something that happened in a past event, you know what I mean, that gave you this purpose?
Yeah. I think I've always definitely had a very strong sense of justice, like, even as a kid, like, "That's not fair," like, "That kid gets," you know what I mean? That annoying child was me, but I do have to say, like, growing up, I had a very, like, adverse experience with my own father, and there was kind of no help for what I know. Like, it sounds like, there was help by the police, but the ongoing help that would have benefit myself and my mum, and also then going back to my old work, I actually had that work accident, which kind of saw me very, very injured. I was in a wheelchair for 2 years. And so I was studying while wheeling around, and that kind of took me into court for the first time ever. And I was quite naive in thinking, of course, I'm going to win this. There's no way that I could lose this, and I did lose. And that absolutely like hit me like a ton of bricks, thinking like how is the system designed where this is so black and white and I can lose. And I was, of course, studying at that time, which put more passion into my study for justice, I guess. Not in I don't want to be working in a courtroom or anything like that, but I love forensics because the evidence speaks for itself and no one can question that evidence. And that really stuck with me after that point, because a lot of the evidence in my case was, my word versus someone else's word. And that's, as we know, what's that? Not much when you're in
Yeah.
a court. So forensics is, I love what I do because if I have evidence, I have it. And if I don't, I don't. And that's something it weighs a lot in the court system. It weighs a lot for families when they get, evidence and they can prove things. And that's really the basis of all my work that's why I love science so much, and it can be retested and tested again, and it still gives you the same sort of answer. So, yeah, I think it was a multitude of things, but I think it landed me in the perfect place because I love what I do to the point where this is what I'm doing on a Saturday night.
Definitely. I think, going out on a Saturday night is just so old school, so last year.
Boring. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think if you won that court case, you'd still be where you are now?
I think I would definitely still be in the industry that I'm in. I don't know that I would have had the drive to help other people not go through that massive letdown. That really pushes me literally on a daily basis. If I'm dealing with, especially taking a client to court, and I'm saying, no, 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 like you entitled to all these things that I didn't know I was entitled to and things like that. I think it's definitely given me the push to have the balls, dare I say it, to start my own business out of nowhere and just run with it.
Because I look at that and think, I don't think you did lose, really. Because I think
Yeah,
part of that has probably, given you that drive to make sure that
I think
that
so.
doesn't sort of happen to other victims.
Yeah, and I think in hindsight, it's put me in a great spot because like here we are years later, and like I've got a business and a charity, and it's helping so many people. So I think you're right in that sense. Like I wouldn't go back and change it, knowing what I've built from it.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Are there any missing persons cases or cold cases that you feel deserve more public attention right now?
Yes, I in Australia particularly, we have a lot of missing men. Like predominantly, the missing persons here are men. If we have a missing female, you'll see her on the news every day for a
Mm.
week, you know? If we've got a missing male, particularly, a young adult male, you're not seeing him on the news. The stereotypes around young men going missing is so bad here. Most of my cases are young men. People tend to think, oh, because they're young, they must be involved in, substance abuse, XYZ, and therefore inherently deserve to go missing or some ridiculous thing like that. And I really do wish that particularly here, I don't know what it's like everywhere else, but we didn't do that. And that if we had a missing person, no matter who they are getting the same attention as the next person. Because at the end of the day, when we're looking for these people and maybe some time has elapsed, we're helping the family. People have to remember, like this is somebody's child, somebody's brother, and it's really sad when they don't get the same attention. A lot of families watch and, they see a new missing person come up and it's a young girl, so she'll be on TV until the case is done. But, their children aren't making it to the newspaper. So that's one massive like red flag that we have here is missing men.
Yeah. And I think even if, say, someone is involved in, say, substance abuse. So you've got a young male that is involved in substance abuse and then he goes missing. Well, surely that is more suspicious in a way, because you think if
Yep.
if someone goes missing, then if they are involved in substance abuse, then they could be involved in, some kind of other kind of crime. So surely that should ring alarm bells anyway. And I think we do have this kind of, I don't know, ingrained misconception of people. I kind of blame the media kind of growing up. If you pass people and they've got their hoods up, then they're going to assault you. Whereas, like I walked past two big guys wearing their hoods, and I had my dog at the time. They moved out of the way to walk in the road so I could get past in the pavement. And yeah, I just think we kind of have this kind of built-in unconscious bias of what we think, people are like, when actually, unless we know them, how can we determine what they are like, really?
Absolutely. And when you're listening to the families and you really listen to them, particularly a parent saying, stayed home with my son for this many years, and tell you all about their background. And you think this is a person, like they might have gotten mixed up in the wrong crowd, but that's more criminals out there ready to act again. Should we not, pursue this? And I say to everybody all the time, we have 2,682 active missing persons cases right now. And if even half of them were foul play and they're unsolved, well, how many murderers do we have walking around sitting at the cafe next to you having a coffee in the morning? Like, are you okay with that? And obviously people say no. So then why are we not, doing more for the missing men? I don't get it.
Yeah, definitely. Throughout your career, have you come across any investigations or forensic cases that have particularly challenged or fascinated you?
Yes. I would say, well, I definitely have. Yes.
Yeah.
One that I worked on in Germany, I think about it daily, and it was my first UV case, unidentified victim. And, we had this man and we couldn't figure out where he came from, who he was related to. Why is no one missing this person? Like, how can no one know who this is? He had a name tattooed on his arm. He had a name tattoo engraved on wedding ring, and still we couldn't find anybody. I think about that every day because it was like only 2 years ago that I worked on this and we still didn't have the capability to work out who this person was, and one other human alive that knows him, baffles me every day. I still think about it because I'm like, how is this in this day and age that no one is missing this man?
Because
That one really got me.
maybe I've listened to too many true crime podcasts, but when you mentioned about wedding ring, I think before I really got into true crime podcasts, I would have thought, well, maybe the other half has passed away. But now I'm thinking, oh, I must have killed. She must have killed
Yeah,
him.
maybe. Well, that's what I thought. I ended up going, well,
Yeah,
maybe she was actually married to someone else. And then, but not
yeah,
a single soul. I'm like, he must have worked at
yeah,
least a day in his life and met a boss or a coworker. I can't understand how no one is missing this man
yeah,
still daily. And it's going to haunt me until we know who he is.
yeah. I think probably someone it is, but they just haven't had the opportunity to explore, say, like the opportunities that you offer people, perhaps. And
Maybe.
perhaps it's just, they've gone to the police and been like, no, sorry, that our line of inquiries have gone cold at the moment. And then it's kind of just stopped there until more things, resurface, which I think the longer it goes on, the less likely it is. Uh,
Yes, because the time it was already, a little bit of a cold case, not too cold, but it was relatively cold. And I'm just, I'm like flagging this as urgent, where I'm like, hello, right now, we need to find people or we're never going to find anyone and I'm never going to sleep at night. But
mm,
we still haven't found anyone. So
yeah,
that case is just, it's going to be in my mind forever.
yeah. And you would have thought with tattoos and things like that, there would be a
Yeah.
database that,
Thank you. Thank you. This is what I said. I was like, do we not have tattoo databases? Do we not have artists who know whose name they're tattooing on someone's arm?
yeah. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Because say, for example, if someone comes into custody and you don't know who they are and they've got a tattoo on their, like saying, I love mum, then basically there should be on their custody profile, if they've been arrested before, like someone has just put descriptors of this is what tattoos they have, this is where they are and things. So if you've got someone in custody and you don't know who they are, you do a search, you type in, okay, this person has I love mum on their left arm, say, and then it'll ping up with, okay, you've got 2 matches or something. So yeah.
Right. So there is some kind of
Yeah.
identification system there, but I think it might be a bit of a grey area. Also, I found in Europe and having cases across there, obviously very different to Australia because we don't border with anyone. But over there, people are crossing borders and, things like that. So maybe he's not even from that area and it turns into something much larger over there, I find, because it's very easily accessible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I can see why that has just probably kept you up at night sometimes.
Well, it's probably going to keep you up at night now too.
Yeah, thank you. I think you've probably already covered this next question. So my next question was about your disability and how you've spoken openly about being registered disabled. If you're comfortable sharing, how has that experience shaped both your personal life and your career?
Like you said earlier, like about the court case, I think in hindsight, it's been a beautiful thing. I acquired this from my work accident. I because it would be a whole other episode if I told you all of the injuries that I had. But basically, I've been left permanently with heart damage, nerve damage to my right leg and my right arm, a condition called CRPS. And I had a traumatic brain injury, so I had a bleed on the brain as well. And I literally finished having surgery. This accident happened in 2011, and I finished having surgery for it in 2021. So it was a very long, and it still is very long. Like I still have, regular appointments and things to that. But in saying that, it has opened my eyes to be a better person because I have thought about things I otherwise never would have thought. When I went to uni and I couldn't get into a lab that I had because I had to be using crutches at that time and there were only stairs, I was like, what? Well, this is me on crutches from having surgery. In a few months' time, I'll be able to walk up those stairs. But what about the people who can't walk up those stairs? They still are entitled to go into their lab class. So it started really opening my eyes in that way, thinking this is so shitty for people who just want to live their life. They might have acquired disability, might have been born with a disability. Why can't they go into every shop like we can? And why can't they access every area like we can? And it's made me a much better person. My house is fully accessible in every room for that reason because I have been there and I now have friends who are permanently in a wheelchair and it's just their basic human right to, access all the things that we access. And if I didn't go through that, I honestly hate to admit that I never would have thought that way. Like I never would have been making accommodations like this. And, I take on quite a bit of interns and students doing placements at Exhuming the Truth. And I prioritize taking students with a disability because they can work for me remotely. And that's not something that, is available in any discipline, let alone in forensics and criminology. So I want people to know if you want to pursue that, there are job opportunities. I had to make my own, but now I'm giving opportunities to other students who have disabilities who otherwise, they can't drive to and from somewhere or, they're in another location and they have an illness. They can still work. And that's something that I'm very, very proud of. And we have a disability and inclusion officer at the charity as well. And I try and make that a huge part of who I am because it is, and because if you're not outward about it, it's not something people really think about, and it's not anyone's fault for not thinking about it. If you're not kind of born into knowing, then how the hell do you know? But it was so crazy to me when they were like, "You can't." I actually had to redo that unit in another semester, and I changed unis after that because I thought if you can't accommodate for me not getting into your lab, I don't want to go here. And I changed universities, and funnily enough, that same university made me do an exam 3 hours after major leg surgery. So I did that, and that was my toxicology exam. Passed it, yeah, passed it, but again, that's not overly accessible. So it's made me definitely think differently, but in a better way, I think.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure if you're going to agree with this. I'm hoping you will. But one person once said to me that someone isn't disabled until they come across an obstacle that makes them not able to do the thing that they want to do. And then they become disabled in a way. So all the while we provide you with everything that you need to, get from A to B, do the job that you want and things like that, then you're sort of able in a way. But it can be, I guess, the way that, say, places are set up and things like that, that is what actually means that you're not able to do that. And it sort of got me, really thinking about, yeah, whenever I do, say, like a training course, if I'm hosting a training course, I need to say, ask anyone, are there any way that I need to accommodate what you need? And then if someone says, I do have a disability and I'm not able to get upstairs, then if I put my training course on the third floor in this building, then I'm disabling them from being able to do that training course. And it can literally be something so simple with someone saying, I've got a stigma in my eyes, so I can't look at these types of bright colors for too long. So then I have to adjust my PowerPoint presentation to make sure that, it accommodates them that way. So yeah, it really kind of opened my perspective on all the tiny little changes that I can do that, okay, it might inconvenience me a tiny bit to adjust my presentation, but that other person's going to be inconvenienced far more than me. So yeah, I just
Yeah.
need to do what I can to accommodate them.
No, that's a really good point because it is often the society structure that is disabling, not actually the person themselves. They can and they do want to do these things. But like you said, even small changes, it might seem small to us, but it's huge to them because they don't have to continually ask to be accommodated for.
Mm.
Once people kind of go, is there anything I can do for you? Even that in itself is huge. And it's something that I don't think there's enough awareness around. We've got a disability office in Perth. I think I can't remember the guy's name, but it's like the disability advocate for the state, whatever you would call that. But I had video sent to me of a gentleman in a wheelchair going there to visit this man for whatever, and it wasn't wheelchair accessible at the disability office. It was just stairs. I was like, what the hell? Like, this is what I mean. Very simple things. Like, we just need very simple things, but I think it's definitely opened my eyes not just to what I need, but what other people need. Like you said, there's so many things that we can accommodate for, and that's why I always prioritize if I have a student coming to me saying I need to do placement, but I have a disability. I'm like, great, well, anything you do here, we can teach you. Your willingness is there. We want you here. Like, we will give you this opportunity because we know how valuable, like we were saying earlier, the getting your foot in the door is. And there's so many jobs, in our industry that can be done remotely. It doesn't have to be, necessarily lab work.
It's good to know that, yeah, heaven forbid anything happens to me. I mean, I have to drive. I have
Got a
to,
job.
yeah, I have to get up on my feet and dig through crime scenes and things like that. So it's reassuring knowing that I can still follow that kind of forensic evidence path, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. I'm also thinking about retirement plan when I'm too old to do to do
Absolutely.
what I
Again, that's
do.
another thing too. Like, it's still something you can do without being on the crime scene, I
Yeah,
guess. I mean, that does sound fun, but
yeah,
should you be 100 and still want to work, you can
yeah.
still, you know.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this kind of opens up the door for more people because I'm asked all the time, how can I gain experience in forensic science? So I'm hoping that listeners listen to this, get in contact with you and think, right, I'm based in the UK. What can I do to help you? And then it helps myself progress my career. But also I think I've worked with a lot of police officers and other personnel that will come to the end of retirement, but they think, well, this career that I've had has been my identity for so long. I need to keep my hand in and keep that up somehow. So maybe
Yeah.
you'll get people that will, do volunteer work for you.
Yeah, they can start up a branch over there.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
advocating for.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, it's just I think a lot of what police do, there'll be times where that kind of has to stop, but it still continues for the families. We've got a lot of charities over here, like you've got Victim Support, Samaritans, other charities like that that are basically there for, you know, for these victims of crime when the police can no longer be. Police will willingly share their contact details with them, so then they'll get into touch and that support will continue. So I just think, yeah, it's really important work what you're doing.
Thank you. I'm glad that, so many different areas of expertise can kind of collaborate in that way because they are all so valuable and play their own like core part in what we do. So if I found the benefit is when so many people from different backgrounds come together, that's when the real good stuff starts.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's a reoccurring theme now, but it's who you know, isn't it? So if you've
It
got
is, yeah.
someone of a different background that might have the answer that you don't, then that's what you want, really, isn't it? A big team that,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't think the Avengers movies would have been the same if it was just one of the Avengers. You know,
Yeah.
stronger as a
Absolutely.
team.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Analogy.
yeah. Your favourite is no doubt Chris Hemsworth, isn't it? Being from,
It's not
oh,
actually.
really?
No. It's Iron Man, and it makes me sad every time. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking about that.
But yeah.
Yeah. It's just the fact that he had a child as well just makes it even worse.
I know. Yeah.
Mm.
My kids watch it all the time, and I'm like, "Turn it off." I don't wanna see.
So, one area of forensic science you're particularly passionate about is stable isotope analysis. For listeners who may not be familiar with it, what is it and how can it help solve investigations?
I love this question
I thought
because
you might.
it's a little bit nerdy. Yeah. Yeah, this is my favorite because I did start, like, after studying and actually working, I was working a lot in no body murders, but also in unidentified victims. And, that while I am hung up on that one case, we put him to the side. The many other cases that can be not just solved, but they can kind of leak subtle clues and say you're on the right direction, which we all love when we're investigating a case. A stable isotope analysis is basically a lab based test. And you say, for example, you'll have an unidentified victim. You can use, their DNA to test for really cool, bizarre things that you would think, as somebody who doesn't do science, you'd be like, what the hell? Which, I had done science for quite a long time. And I even said that when I first learned it, I'm like, this is amazing. It can basically tell your heritage, kind of like think of a family tree type situation. This person, was born here, but lived here and ate this types of food, like a Mediterranean diet, but living here. It can tell all of these things, which it's made up of basically your inhalants, the air you're breathing, the soil that you've come into contact with, all of these different things contribute to that and build a really awesome picture, essentially everything without a name and a birth date you're getting from this one test, which I love so much because it can point you, in the right direction of somebody's heritage, link you to, known people that you can test against. Again, like if somebody is on a certain diet, it's insane to me. It will always be insane to me, and I love it so much. But it gives you so much information.
And I guess it'll help paint more of a picture of, say, like, and narrow down who that person is.
Yes.
So I guess if you find out that, say, someone doesn't eat meat or anything like that, they might be a vegetarian, then that narrows down it's almost like a filter search, isn't it? So when you start
Yes.
filtering, like, I don't know, you ladies, I want to buy a dress, but I want to buy a red dress. I want it to be, this, that. Then you're kind of filtering down until you eventually probably come up with no search results if you filter too much, but, you get a few
Absolutely.
that you can then,
Yes.
yeah, do those leads on.
And the best thing is they don't decay over time, which I also love because it's not time sensitive. You could test these, a stable isotope itself, which is what you're testing, it's not decaying. It
Mm.
exists and it hangs, and you can test it today and next week and in a month, and you're going to get the same results. And I think that's really cool. Like a very cool scientific advancement, whoever came up with that. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
would you be able to say, would it help date stamp, say how old, say like someone may have been there for? And I'm thinking this is probably just off the cuff, like with dentistry and odontologists, and when they're looking for teeth, they think, well, we stopped using those fillings at such and such point. Is there ever, like things that come up like, I don't know, like, okay, so that, say, like food diet or something like that was really popular in this day and age, and then it stopped being popular. So does that help kind of paint a map in a way?
I think so. It does in a way because when you're doing that test, it's kind of a mixture with a DNA analysis, if that
Mm,
makes sense. So it does kind of technically fall under anthropology. And, an anthropologist or a forensic anthropologist would tell somebody's age or how long bones have been there by analyzing their bones and their bone density and bone structure. It's kind of like that in a way, but again, it's quite detailed with all the things that you've said they could be testing for. They could all come up and be like, okay, well, this person's, eating a very, dare I say, caveman type diet. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like they would be able to tell from that as opposed to modern day people who eat a lot of meat.
Mm,
Does that make sense? If
yeah.
you're going back and forwards, yeah. But the method relies a lot on like the composition. So it goes into a lot of detail. So I think it would, and it has on cases that I've worked in kind of determined how long I suppose that person has been there for and how long since they have had that diet, like
Mm,
since they've been eating those foods and traveling in those places.
yeah. You put it far better than I did. Thank you.
No, yeah, I've just messed that up, but I'm glad that you understood. Hopefully everybody else does.
Yeah. But I was chatting to a girl called Emily who is on my wildlife crime podcast. And this really fascinated me because they do this with animals that, say, people have poached and things like that. They'll say that, oh no, they were captive bred or something. And then if they do these testings, if this animal has a varied diet, in their system, in their DNA and everything like that, if it's varied, then that shows that they're foraging. Whereas if they have the same diet every single day, they're more likely to be captive bred. And
Right.
yeah, that
So it
really
makes
interests.
sense when you say that, but you would never really think like that. And I love wildlife forensics is so
Mm,
great. Yeah.
yeah, good stuff. Finally, many of our listeners may be wondering how they can help. What practical advice would you give to someone who wants to support missing persons investigations, cold cases, or victim advocacy?
I think the first thing I would say is try and identify any organizations that are similar to what we do at the charity in your area. And, just have that kind of have at least touch on that information and know that it's there for one, because a lot of the time you were not expecting to need a service like that, nor should you anticipate, sorry, needing a service like that. But knowing that it's there, it helps other people even, in conversation realize that that is a service and should they know someone who needs it, that's one thing. Another thing is don't be afraid to talk about it. Like I said earlier on, the families really just want people to hear them, hear their stories. If someone's missing, to talk about them and to tell other people. And if, a lot of people do also then refrain from coming forward with really what seems like irrelevant information if they had been at a certain place at a certain time that could be relevant to somebody who is a victim of crime or who has gone missing. You never know what little tiny seemingly irrelevant piece of information is very important in that case. So definitely not keeping quiet, you know, in all sense of the word. I am a very annoyingly vocal person, but it's got me to where I am. And it also is very useful in advocating yourself for yourself and for victims and for missing persons and, not being afraid to have a chat with people about things like this because it's not something that people talk about often. And you probably find it too when you talk to people in regards to your work. That's one thing. But if you're talking to somebody who's not in the industry, it all seems a bit of a shock to them when you
Mm,
talk about things like this.
mm,
And at the end of the day, the people who are on the TV and in these stories, they're just people. We're all just people. So having that conversation about these sorts of things is super important. And another one that I have to add, which I do, which my counsel hates me, I swear. They haven't said it, but I know they do. But I always, when they're building new infrastructures and things like that, I'm like, hey, like, are you adding CCTV to that area? If you see an area that you think, hey, maybe that would benefit from some closed circuit TV, talk about that too, because there's a lot of, I don't know about there, but like bush trails and state parks and things that have no CCTV, even for entry and exit purposes. But that is where a lot of crime is happening because people know that they can commit crime in there because there's no CCTV. So that one, that's a random one, but it's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. People will go where they know they can go undetected, really, don't they, to commit
Absolutely.
their crimes. Yeah. If someone wants to contact you, Asha, about anything that they've listened here today, what's the best way for them to do that?
I would say, oh goodness, it got me on an easy one. I think probably our email, which is just exhumingthetruth@gmail.com, but we are active across everything like TikTok, Instagram. Facebook is our biggest one for some reason. I don't know why, but the people like what they like. But we're responsive across basically everything. So however you feel most comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. That has been fantastic.
Awesome.
But yeah, thank you so much for talking to me, Asha. And yeah, I'm so grateful for the work you do. And I know there's going to be so many families out there that just feel better supported knowing what you and your charity are doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lots of fun.
Yeah.
The night folds over the city like a trench coat collar turned up against the rain. And somewhere out there, another story is already bleeding through the cracks. If you want to keep riding shotgun with us, subscribe to The Evidence Trail wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to spot beyond the flashing blue lights, join our Patreon. Subscribers get exclusive episodes, early access drops, and case files the rest of the world won't hear until the smoke clears. And when the mic goes silent, find us at Evidence Trail on social media. Until next time, stay curious. In a city like this, evidence is like a ghost in the fog. And if you're a crook walking the evidence trail, watch where you step.